I pressed record to prove she was still breathing. My name is Anna. I am 65. The mornings in this house always start the same. The kettle whines, the window fogs, and a single sunbeam creeps across the chipped mug I've used since I was a girl. The air smells faintly of lavender from yesterday's wash. In that quiet hum, even the clock seems to breathe with her. Slow, steady, fragile. I tell myself that as long as I can hear its ticking, she's safe. The quilt folded on the armchair carries her scent, and when I touch its worn stitching, I feel the years pressed inside it. Birthdays, winters, her voice whispering to keep the fire burning. I think about the ring she used to polish every night, how she called it her little inheritance of love. The locket catches the light. Its hinge creaks, a soft reminder that time has weight. Then, the phone on the table vibrates once. I glance at it, meaning only to check the time, but the screen glows with a missed call from my sister. I press the voice recorder before I call back. Habit, really. Ever since the hospital visits began, I've kept records of everything. Bills, prescriptions, and now conversations, just in case. When she answers, her voice is a whisper wrapped in calculation. "She won't need them," she says. "What are you talking about?" "The jewels, Anna, before she dies." The words sit between us like a blade. I hear my niece's laughter in the background, soft, careless, young. They're together, planning. My mother's name drifts through their chatter as if she were already gone. My throat tightens. I don't speak. I only listen. There's the clink of a spoon, a shuffle, and then my sister again. "If we sell them now, we can settle the bills." A pause. "And keep the rest. She won't notice." The sound of that sentence splinters something inside me. The tick of the clock grows louder, drowning the part of me that wants to believe this is misunderstanding. I lower the phone to my lap, the red dot still pulsing, recording every word. My hand trembles. For a moment, I imagine the sunlight on her face, the one lying in the next room, her breath a thin thread between worlds. I whisper to the empty kitchen, "She's still breathing." Outside, a car door slams. My niece's voice fades into laughter, distant and cruelly alive. I stop the recording and replay it, the sound sharp and undeniable. There it is, evidence wrapped in intimacy, their betrayal inside my phone. Later that afternoon, I sit by the fire, the hearth crackling weakly. My mother stirs, half awake, asking for water. I pour it slowly, letting the glass tremble just enough to spill a few drops onto the quilt. "Rest," I tell her. "Everything's fine." My own voice doesn't believe it. When she sleeps again, I scroll through the ledger we keep for her expenses. I mark a new line. Recording. Market Street Clinic, reference 1A7. It's small, but it's proof. If they ever question me, I'll have it ready. Not vengeance, just truth. The air feels colder as evening sets in. The ticking clock skips once, then continues. I stare at the locket glinting beside the ledger and realize that every home carries both warmth and warning. One protects you, the other waits. I make a silent vow. I will not let them take her dignity for dollars. No matter how many receipts I have to gather, no matter who turns against me, I will guard her memory the way she once guarded my childhood. The recording ends with my sister's voice, low and final. "Sell her jewels before she dies." They priced her life at $4,000. There are 4 deposits missing from her account. I notice it first on a Tuesday morning when the light from the window falls directly over the ledger. The ritual is simple: coffee, pen, calculator, and the quiet comfort of numbers adding up. Except this time, they don't. My thumb runs along the ridge of the paper, the faint grain beneath my skin. I smooth each page like I could calm it back into truth. The ink shows 4 clean gaps: $1,500, $2,300, $400, $800. The sum sticks in my throat. $5,000 gone, just gone. My mother's pension account had always been steady, predictable as her breathing. But now the lines look thinner, the handwriting sharper. A stranger's touch has crept into her piece. I take a deep breath and whisper to no one. It has to be a mistake. My own voice sounds foreign, too controlled. I fold the statement in half, then again, until it fits neatly into my purse like a secret I don't want to carry. At Springview Bank, Branch 12, the air hums with that sterile chill only banks have. The protector, Mark, the clerk who has always greeted me with polite indifference, leans in when he sees my face. Something's wrong, I tell him. He studies the papers, his brow tightening. These transactions are unusual, he murmurs. They were authorized, but not by you. By who, then? He hesitates, lowering his voice. I'm not supposed to say. The word supposed lands like a warning. He glances at the clock, taps his keyboard, and whispers, Someone used an old access form, her power of attorney. His eyes flicker up, cautious. My sister, I say softly. He doesn't confirm. He doesn't have to. The paper's texture feels heavier now, like guilt embossed into pulp. I trace the numbers again. Each missing line feels like a betrayal written in neat banking font. The signatures at the bottom look rushed, one even smudged, as if the hand signing it shook. Mark sighs, pushing the ledger toward me. You could revoke shared access, he says. I will. But it might cause trouble, he adds. I know. That evening, the family group chat explodes. Words fly faster than breath. Selfish, controlling, always looking for drama. My sister types the loudest, claiming I've overstepped, saying the bank found nothing, that I'm turning grief into accusation. I stare at her messages until my hands tremble. The smell of ink and paper still lingers from the afternoon. I can almost feel the ridge of the bank slip beneath my nails. At midnight, I sit at the table again. The quilt draped over the chair seems to sigh with me. I unfold the ledger one more time and write a note in the margin. Revoked consent, reference B41. I don't know if it means anything, but it anchors me. Proof, even if no one believes it yet. The next morning, Mark calls. His voice is strained. They've asked me not to discuss your mother's account anymore, he says. I could lose my job. I understand, I whisper. You didn't hear it from me, he adds, but there's a scanned invoice attached to a transfer, $3,000, labeled medical. Medical? I ask. He pauses. No hospital name listed. The line goes quiet, the silence thick as the paper itself. My mother's health had been steady. There were no medical emergencies, no bills like that. The digits swim before my eyes, and I realize the numbers aren't numbers anymore. They're footprints. Later, I stand by the window watching dusk bleed into the street. I tell myself it's just money, that the truth is still recoverable. But money carries memory. Each stolen dollar is a choice, a finger pressed against her name. The stakes are no longer balance sheets. They're dignity, trust, and what's left of my mother's peace. A soft wind stirs the curtain. I whisper again, half to the empty room, half to her resting upstairs. I'll fix this. I'll bring it back. When I return to the bank the following day, the system logs deny me access. The clerk avoids my eyes. The ledger pages feel rougher under my fingertips, almost bruised. And as I reach the final sheet, I notice a faint note printed in gray near the bottom corner. Tiny numbers fading out after page 6. The clerk said she couldn't show me pages 7 to 9. She put the phone down and said, "We do what we must." The sound lingers longer than the words. The kettle hums on the stove, a dull hiss filling the quiet. I watch her fingers tremble just slightly as she adjusts her sleeve. My niece won't look at me. Her face is pale, but her eyes stay hard, unblinking. "We need money," she says finally. "For what?" I ask. "It's for the house." "You mean for her house?" I correct. She shrugs. "Stop being dramatic." The whistle of the kettle rises, shrill enough to pierce the air between us. I turn it off, but the ringing doesn't fade. My mother's photograph stares down from the mantel. She was 40 in that picture, smiling like she believed we'd never fight like this. Now, her silence fills the space between us more completely than sound ever could. The table between us feels smaller, the air thicker. "You can't just take what isn't yours," I whisper. Her jaw tightens. "You revoked access. You froze everything. What do you expect us to live on?" I try to keep my voice steady. "You could have asked me." "We did," she snaps. "You just stopped listening." She rises from her chair, brushing past me, leaving her teacup untouched. The spoon inside it still quivers from the motion. The faint tapping becomes unbearable, so I catch it mid-rattle and hold it still. When I look up, she's already at the door. "This isn't about her anymore," I say softly, but she doesn't answer. The latch clicks shut, sealing the quiet like a verdict. Later that night, my phone buzzes 3 times in quick succession. Unknown number. Each message shorter than the last. "You started this." Then, "You'll regret it." Then, just silence. No words, only a single audio note with static and the faint sound of breathing. I replay it again and again until I catch something else. A muffled sentence. The same voice from that afternoon. "We do what we must." My own words from earlier twist back against me. Proof, I think. Cold, accidental proof. I save the file under a folder named Willow Street Group, screenshot ID A7. The next morning, my neighbor knocks. She's a quiet woman, mid-60s, with eyes that never miss much. She says she overheard part of our argument through the open window. "I shouldn't have listened," she admits, "but I thought something wasn't right." She shows me her phone, a screen capture from the neighborhood chat, where my niece had posted a thinly veiled story about greedy relatives controlling old women's money. My name isn't written, but everyone will know. I thank her, though my throat burns as I do. She promises to speak up if it ever goes further. For now, it's just a witness, a single thread of validation. I email the image to myself, label it as a record, something tangible when their lies start spreading faster than I can catch them. That night, the phone rings again. I don't answer. The sound fills the hall, echoing faintly off the wallpaper. The house feels smaller, emptier, locked against me in invisible ways. The locks on the doors are new. My sister must have changed them after my last visit. The message is clear. I'm not welcome here anymore. I stand outside the front gate for a long moment, the cool night air pressing against my skin. Somewhere inside, a light flickers. Not steady, not warm, just a reminder that life is continuing without me. I whisper to the darkness, "I won't let you erase her." A few days later, the community mediator invites me for tea. She's gentle but firm, a retired teacher who keeps her calm even when everyone else trembles. I show her the screenshot, the messages, the recording. She listens quietly, nodding once. "It's not just about the money anymore," she says. "It's about control." I know she's right. My mother's name, her memory, her peace, all being rewritten while she still breathes. The stakes have shifted. They want silence. I want truth. And the truth, it seems, is dangerous. When I step outside, the evening wind carries the sound of a door slamming somewhere down the street. My pulse stutters. I can almost hear her footsteps retreating, quick and angry, each one a beat of distance. I whisper to no one, "It's not over." She slammed the door and left at 10. 4 invoices, 3 signatures, 2 dates, 1 forgery. The words leave my mouth before I realize I've said them aloud. The fluorescent light in the legal aid's office hums above me, flickering just enough to make everything feel uncertain. Paper stacks lean against the wall, each one a small mountain of other people's troubles. Mine is just another file on the desk, yet it feels heavier than all the rest. The arbiter, a calm man with steady hands, flips through the invoices I've brought. "Let's go one by one," he says. His tone is measured, not unkind. We'll compare signatures. The first invoice, $2,000, looks clean, the signature practiced but real. The second, $12,200, carries a slight tremor, like someone trying to imitate confidence. The third, $1,800, is the one that stops him mid-sentence. He brings it closer to the lamp, eyes narrowing. "Same name," he murmurs, "but not the same hand." The fourth invoice, a blank one marked pending medical expenses, lists no amount, only a note scribbled at the bottom. Cleared through family account, reference D9. He leans back. Who handled this paperwork? My sister, I answer quietly. He exhales. And she had access to the accounts? Until last month. Then you need to file a notice of withdrawal. Immediately. I nod, pretending I don't already feel the walls closing in. The numbers echo in my mind like an old nursery rhyme twisted into warning. 2,000, 1,200, 1,800, 0. The total sits there unblinking, $5,000 missing. But that isn't the wound. It's the forgery. Seeing her signature, her handwriting copied, feels like watching her spirit stolen line by line. The arbiter slides a form toward me. The paper gleams under the harsh light. I sign it slowly, the pen scratching louder than I expect. This revokes your consent for her to manage any part of your mother's estate, he explains. Once logged, she'll be notified. Notified how? Officially. There will be pressure, I won't lie. I can handle pressure, I whisper. It's silence I can't live with. He nods, sympathetic but distant, the way professionals learn to be when empathy becomes part of their job. I watch the seal on his desk press into the corner of the form, leaving an embossed mark. Authority. Proof. It's strangely satisfying to see something permanent for once. When I step outside, the late afternoon light stings my eyes. The city feels washed in a pale yellow haze. I pull the papers from my folder and hold them up. One signature glints faintly where the ink thickened. It looks almost deliberate, like whoever forged it wanted to be caught. A careless vanity, or maybe a message. Either way, it's mine now. Evidence. I walk to the central notary, file the complaint, and get a stamped acknowledgement, an official record marked with today's date and reference entry D9. The clerk behind the counter avoids eye contact, repeating the standard line, "The matter will be reviewed." I know what that means. Weeks of waiting, months of deflection, a year if I'm lucky. Still, it's movement. By evening, I get a message from an unknown number. Why involve strangers? We could have fixed this quietly. I don't respond. A few minutes later, another text arrives. You'll regret embarrassing us. The words blur under the screen's glow, the letters bright against the dusk creeping through my window. The hum of that office light still rings in my ears. I imagine my sister pacing, furious that control has slipped through her hands. This is her counterattack, intimidation, dressed as family concern. I sit down at the kitchen table with the ledger again, tracing the math to ground myself. 4 invoices, 1 forgery, 4 voices, 1 silence. I underline the total once more, $5,000, then write in the margin, formal notice served, complaint logged. It's not revenge, it's reclamation. The next morning, the legal aid calls. Just a heads up, he says, his voice careful. They've filed something too, a counter-complaint, police involvement. My chest tightens. Against me? I'm afraid so. Institutional pressure, don't panic. It's common in disputes like this. Common, he says, as if betrayal has become a policy term. I stare at the light bleeding through the blinds, fractured into strips across the floor. My hand tightens around the receiver until the cord creaks. Outside, somewhere beyond the window, a siren wails faintly, swallowed by distance. I whisper into the empty room. This isn't about winning anymore. It's about surviving what they've already broken. They filed a counter-complaint at 2:30 p.m. The bank froze the account. The house stayed unlocked. The letter came on a Thursday morning. One crisp white page, the texture smooth under my thumb, the seal unbroken. I knew before opening it that something had shifted. Institutions don't send envelopes like that unless they mean to make you feel small. I slid my nail along the edge, unfolded it, and read the words that made my stomach turn. Temporary freeze pending review of authorization. No apology, no warning, just cold procedure. Outside, the air smelled faintly of rain and metal. I stood in the doorway reading it again, my breath fogging the edge of the page. For a moment, I thought of the house, still open, still unguarded, as if that quiet place carried more honesty than the bank ever would. The freeze meant I couldn't pay the nurse, the bills, the food delivery. It meant control again, but this time wearing a badge. By noon, the family group chat had caught fire. "You're holding her money. You think you know better than everyone? Maybe you're the reason she's getting worse." Each message another jab. My sister's post appeared like a bullet between the lines. "She froze our mother's funds without consent." The comments came fast. Familiar names I'd grown up with now dripping suspicion. Neighbors, cousins, people who hadn't visited in years now had opinions. I typed a reply, deleted it, then wrote again. "The freeze isn't mine, it's the bank's." Deleted that too. No one believes the quiet explanation. They only hear the louder accusation. At the market that Sunday, I could feel it. Eyes following me as I passed the fruit stall. Whispered pauses. One woman I'd known since school turned away, pretending to adjust her scarf. The stall's canvas roof fluttered above me, paper thin like the letter in my bag. Then I saw him. The gatekeeper from Northside Branch, the same clerk who'd once processed my mother's first pension check. His voice was low when he spoke. "I shouldn't say this," he muttered, sliding a folded paper toward me. "But you should know they're holding internal notes. It's not a security issue. It's personal." I opened it carefully. It wasn't official. No header, no logo. But the words were enough. "Pending hold initiated at request of secondary signatory." I didn't need to see her name. I already knew. The stakes were simple. If this freeze stayed, I couldn't cover my mother's care. That meant she'd become dependent on them again, the very people who'd already betrayed her. I felt the paper's edge bite into my skin as I gripped it tighter. "Thank you," I whispered. He nodded once, glancing over his shoulder. "Don't say it came from me." When I got home, the house felt too quiet. The receipt pile on the counter looked suddenly fragile, each one a record of honesty that now meant nothing. I slipped the gatekeeper's note inside the locket I'd worn since my mother first fell ill. A strange instinct, maybe, but it felt like protection, a secret folded into metal. The next day, the whispers turned into noise. Someone from the family posted a screenshot of the bank message, cropped to look like my signature sat beneath the freeze request. It wasn't mine. The curve of the A was wrong, the ink tone slightly faded, but no one cared. "She's losing control," one comment read. "She's trying to own everything." I stopped checking my phone after that. The air in the kitchen felt heavy, full of stillness that clung to the walls. The sunlight on the counter turned the paper pale. I pressed my hand over it, feeling the texture, the faint embossed letters of the branch name. Northside. It almost looked beautiful under the light, deceit dressed up in formality. Later, the community mediator called. "They're requesting a meeting," she said. "For what?" "To discuss the account situation. It's been circulating." "Circulating," I repeated. The word tasted bitter. "It's scheduled for the 14th. I hung up slowly, the quiet hum of the line echoing in my ear. They'd turned private grief into public spectacle. The stakes weren't just money anymore. They were reputation, dignity, truth. I folded the freeze notice once, twice, until it fit neatly inside my coat pocket. Then I whispered to the empty room, "If they want a meeting, they'll get the truth." They announced a meeting for the 14th. Her name is on a letter. Her signature is faint. The smell hits first. Antiseptic, sharp and sterile. The kind that stays with you long after you leave a clinic. I sit in the waiting room of St. Mary Clinic, the hum of fluorescent lights above mixing with the distant cough of someone unseen. On the chair beside me rests an envelope, thin but heavy in consequence. Inside it, a doctor's letter declares what no child ever wants to read about a parent: diminished capacity. I unfold it once, twice, my fingers tracing the faint blue ink. Her name is there, shaky but recognizable, her signature smaller than it used to be. 6 words stand out in bold: impaired judgment due to progressive memory decline. I read them again, and something cold settles in my chest. This wasn't written to heal her. It was written to transfer power. The clinic door opens, and the protector, Dr. Harris, the only GP who still speaks plainly to me, steps out. His eyes are kind, but wary. "You've seen the letter," he says softly. "Yes." He nods toward the file. "It's valid. She agreed to the test, but I can tell you, it was done under pressure." "Pressure?" he sighs. "Your sister was present during the consultation. Every time your mother hesitated, she filled the silence." I look down at the paper again. "So this—" "It's medical," he interrupts gently, "but not moral. Be careful how you use it." The scent of disinfectant burns the back of my throat. I fold the letter back into its envelope. "She'll use this to take control," I say quietly. "She already is," he answers. "She called this morning asking for a copy to submit to the guardianship board." I grip the chair's arm until it creaks. The stakes rise in silence, each heartbeat louder than the last. "What can I do?" "Contest it," he replies. "But that means a hearing, and once you start that process, there's no going back." Outside, the winter air feels too clean after the clinic's sterile chill. I can still smell the antiseptic on my clothes. In my bag, the prescription bottle rattles against the appointment card, small tokens of normalcy now twisted into evidence. Every object feels like proof, but none of it feels like help. That afternoon, my sister calls. No greeting, no warmth. "You've seen the letter?" "Yes." "Then you know she's not fit to decide." "I'm filing for guardianship." "You pressured her into that test." "She's forgetting things," she snaps. "Yesterday she asked what year it was." "She forgets details, not meaning. You forget truth." There's a pause, then a cold laugh. "Keep talking like that, and I'll make sure they see who's really unstable." The line clicks dead. I stare at the phone for a long time, the antiseptic scent still ghosting through my senses. The world feels smaller, the walls closer. I write in my notebook, a habit now, a single line. This letter is not a diagnosis. It's a weapon. 2 days later, I meet Dr. Harris again, this time at his small office tucked behind the pharmacy. He looks exhausted. "They're moving fast," he says. "She's already asked for a notarized statement from me." I refused. "Thank you," he nods. "You'll need another medical opinion, one outside the family network. I can refer you, but it'll take time." "How much?" 14 days. 14 days. The number lands hard. 2 weeks for her to twist this letter into law. I take a breath, the faint chemical scent still clinging to my hands. "Then we start now," I say. "No more waiting." When I return home, an envelope lies wedged under the door, legal-sized, thick, stamped with urgency. I know before opening it that she's made her move. I tear the seal open, fingers trembling. The words blur for a moment before coming into focus. Notice of guardianship filing. Custody hearing scheduled. The scent of antiseptic floods back in memory. The clinic, the cold paper, the faint signature that began it all. I whisper to the empty room, "You turned her illness into leverage." Then I read the final line of the notice. They served custody papers at noon. They spoke softly in a room that smelled of lemon. The air was too clean, too polite for truth. The overhead light buzzed faintly above us, reflecting off the polished wood of the long table. I sat at one end, hands clasped over a folder that felt heavier than its contents. 5 sheets of paper, 2 audio transcripts, and 1 life divided by signatures. The arbiter entered quietly, a man whose voice could make even mercy sound procedural. He looked between us, me on the left, my sister on the right, and said, "Let's begin." No raised voices, no gasps, just the quiet hum of authority pretending to be fairness. The smell of lemon polish drifted from the table, sharp and artificial. I focused on that scent, because it was easier than looking at her. "Please describe the nature of the dispute," the clerk said. I took a breath. My mother's medical proxy was changed under questionable conditions. "I'm asking for temporary control of her financial and health accounts until her evaluation is complete." My sister smiled, that careful, composed smile people practice in mirrors before they lie. "She's exaggerating," she said. "We acted out of necessity. There was confusion with the bank, and she made it worse by freezing funds without notice." I opened the folder and slid a small recorder forward. "May I play an excerpt from a verified communication? Reference entry T5, logged 3 weeks ago." The arbiter nodded. I pressed play. The sound filled the lemon-scented silence, my sister's voice, steady and cruel. "Just sign the form, Mother. She'll make it harder if you don't." The arbiter's pen stopped mid-scratch. He didn't look up. "Is this your voice?" he asked. She hesitated. "It's complicated. Answer directly." "Yes," she said finally, "but you're taking it out of context." That word, context, hung in the air like smoke. The arbiter turned to me. "How did you obtain this recording?" "It was shared from my mother's phone backup before it was erased," I said. "Do you have proof of erasure?" "Only the date logs. They match the day her account access changed." He nodded once, making a note. The pen's shadow stretched long under the lamp. I watched the reflection tremble slightly on the tabletop, like light uncertain of its source. The opposing counsel rose, unfolding an affidavit. "We have counter-evidence," he announced, "signed statements from 2 caregivers confirming that the sister acted responsibly." I stared at the folder he held up, its tab marked neatly, Exhibit 2A. The illusion of order made deceit feel professional. The arbiter leaned back. "I'll review all submitted materials." Then, turning toward me, he asked, "Do you wish to add anything before we adjourn?" "Yes." I reached for the second transcript, the one from the bank. "This is the institutional acknowledgement of the freeze. It cites direct interference from a secondary signatory, the same person listed here." He took it, eyes moving line by line, slow and deliberate. "Acknowledged," he said quietly. "This will be entered into the record." The light flickered once, a pulse, brief but visible. Maybe a coincidence, maybe not. I glanced up and saw the faint dust motes swirling above us, tiny witnesses in a room that pretended to hold truth steady. Afterward, the clerk asked us to remain seated while she verified submissions. My sister leaned closer, her voice low. "You think this changes anything?" "It already has," I said. "You're embarrassing yourself." "Better me than her." For the first time, her smile faltered. The arbiter returned, a new folder in hand. "Both parties have submitted documentation. I will require a full accounting of the disputed funds." "When?" my sister asked. "By Friday," he said. Friday. 2 days to gather every receipt, every bill, every trace of where the money went. 2 days to expose what she'd buried under polished words and forged concern. As we stood to leave, the clerk stacked the evidence into neat piles, 2 folders, one on top of the other, bound by an elastic band. The overhead light flickered again, casting one sharp gleam across the wood. I caught it in my eye and held it there, a small, stubborn brightness that refused to dim. Outside, the hallway smelled faintly of cleaning spray and paper dust. I carried the folder against my chest like a shield, the lemon scent trailing behind me as I walked. The judge asked for an accounting by Friday. They argued at the community hall. 60 watched. The murmur began before the microphone even cracked to life. I could feel the sound move through the air like static. Whispers, half laughs, that low hum of people pretending not to take sides when they already have. The wooden floor of Willow Hall creaked beneath the weight of every small betrayal that had led us here. The chairperson cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss the guardianship concerns affecting the family of record." A polite sentence wrapped around a public spectacle. My sister stood near the front, a flyer clutched in her hand, like a weapon dressed as charity. I could still see the faint print across the top. Community fundraiser for mother's well-being. She had organized it 2 weeks ago, right after the hearing, collecting money in our mother's name, implying I'd withheld it. Every cookie and raffle ticket built her story. She, the caring daughter, me, the cold accountant. The lie had flavor now, sugar-coated and shared. When the chair asked for statements, she didn't hesitate. "I've only ever done what's right for our mother," she said. Someone had to act before everything was taken. Murmurs rippled again. I counted at least 60 faces turned our way, one crowd, one judgment forming. I stepped forward. "You sold her future," I said quietly into the mic. The sound carried, clearer than I intended, harder than I felt. The silence afterward was sharp, almost clean. "She's twisting this," my sister snapped. "She froze the account, remember? Ask her about that letter, the one she hides in her drawer." I met her gaze. "You mean the bank notice that proves your transfer?" Gasps, scattered but real. Some people looked down. Some pretended they didn't hear. A woman near the back raised a small hand, a neighbor I recognized from the old street. She carried a folder, the kind that always looks too organized to be innocent. "I have something," she said. "A flyer from the bake sale, dated and signed by the committee. It lists your sister as treasurer." The chair took it carefully, reading aloud. "Total funds collected, $1,240. Disbursement pending to family representative." His eyes lifted toward my sister. "Was this declared to the board?" She hesitated. "It was an informal event." "Informal events don't print donation slips," I said. Then came the voice from the side. The witness who had helped me once before, phone in hand, voice steady. "There's also a recording," she said. "From the setup day. You might want to hear this." The sound filled the hall. Her laughter, my sister's voice again, unmistakable. "If they think she's handling the money, no one will give a cent." Every whisper that had once hummed under breath now stopped. Even the wooden ceiling seemed to hold its air. The chair shifted uncomfortably. "This is serious," he said. "Funds tied to guardianship disputes are not to be raised without disclosure. You're aware of that policy?" My sister's hand shook as she set down the flyer. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it?" I asked softly. "A fundraiser or a cover story?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The proof was there, in the echo of her voice and the dated ink on that flyer. The same sound that had haunted me through weeks of isolation now filled this hall, a reversal I hadn't planned but silently prayed for. The murmurs began again, not soft this time, but rising, uneven, layered with disbelief. A few stood, others whispered names. The sound reminded me of wind cutting through branches, relentless, exposing. The chair finally spoke. "Enough!" His tone was firm, almost weary. "If you claim transparency, you'll produce your records." He looked between us, two sides of a family that no longer spoke, only argued through witnesses and letters. "Both of you will submit documentation and receipts for all collected or frozen funds." "When?" my sister asked. He didn't flinch. "By Monday." Monday. 2 days to collect what's left of our truth. I folded the flyer, its paper soft from too many hands, and slipped it into my pocket. The sound of the crowd blurred into something distant. Not victory, not closure, just noise thinning into silence. Outside, the evening wind carried faint echoes of that hall. The microphone crackle, the shuffle of papers, the single word that ended it all. The chair demanded proof by Monday. A screenshot shows her signature. The staircase squeaked. The glow from the phone screen painted the walls a cold blue. I sat halfway down the stairs where the wood still moaned on the third step, scrolling through the proof that shouldn't have existed but somehow did. Her signature, clear, perfect, smug, sat under the words, "Handle it." One email, one transfer, one trail she hadn't erased. The light stung my eyes after hours of staring, but I couldn't look away. It was there, in black and white, the message she'd sent the day before the guardianship freeze lifted. Attached, a bank confirmation for $3,000 sent to a consulting firm that didn't exist last year. I forwarded everything to the only person I trusted now, a contact at the internet provider. He wasn't family, which made him safe. Archive header, ID E22, I typed. Confirm if the timestamp aligns with the account recovery. Within minutes, he replied, Received. I'll run metadata integrity tonight. The faint hum of the refrigerator echoed through the hallway, too loud for the quiet I needed. The sense of light felt alive now, like it watched me back through the screen. Proof has weight, but digital proof has voltage. I could almost hear it buzz. By morning, my inbox held his message. Header validated. Transmission confirmed through private domain relay. Origin. Same device listed under your sister's account. I stared at it. There it was. The invisible thread tying her deception to one simple act of arrogance. She hadn't deleted the record, she'd hidden it under her own recovery address. I printed the email, then the attached screenshot. 2 pages, 1 truth. As I laid them on the table, the early light filtered through the curtains, dust motes swirling over the ink like confetti for a truth no one wanted to celebrate. At noon, my phone buzzed again. Her number. You've been busy, she said. Her tone was steady, too steady. You sent $3,000 to a ghost firm, I replied. You don't understand what that money was for. Then explain it. It's reimbursement, legal fees. Mom's evaluation required documentation. Then why forge her signature? She paused. Too long, too careful. Because you wouldn't have let me do it otherwise. The line crackled. The light from my phone dimmed, and for a moment I saw the reflection of my own face. Tired, but unshaken. You forged her consent, I said quietly. I preserved her dignity, she whispered. No, I said. You bought your control. Later that afternoon, the gatekeeper called. You'll need to move fast, he warned. She's trying to revoke the account authorization. They've issued a request to freeze logs beyond 24 hours. That's not normal. That's pressure. I closed my eyes. Can you preserve it? I can send an internal flag, but I'll need a formal request, digital preservation order, not court-backed yet. If they escalate, it goes public. Do it, I said. I looked up at the staircase. Same squeak, same rhythm. The sound of memory pressed underfoot. Every creak a reminder of how far I'd fallen from believing family was safe ground. By evening, the screen flickered again. A new email from him, subject line blank except for one word. Executed. Inside it read, the ISP has logged the metadata under Preservation Order Reference E22. All copies secured. You're covered for now. The relief didn't come right away. I stared at the glow of the screen until the light blurred, my vision swimming in tired rings of blue. That proof, cold, digital, undeniable, had finally shifted the balance. Not victory, not yet, but survival. I whispered into the silence. You wanted control, and now you're in record. Outside, the streetlights buzzed alive. Inside, the house held its breath, the quiet before the next strike. The phone screen dimmed, then locked, leaving me alone in the faint silver of the monitor's afterglow. The ISP sent a preservation order. I begged her, tell me you didn't sign this. The paper trembled between us, thin as breath. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine, the silence stretched, filled only by the sound of the clock striking once, too loud, too certain. I had seen her handwriting all my life. This wasn't it. The curves were wrong, the loops tighter, the pressure off. Still it bore her name, her signature, her betrayal. She finally looked up, voice small. I just wanted peace. Peace? I whispered. You gave them everything. They said it was only temporary. Who did? They said, you'd make it ugly. The room felt smaller than it was. The chair behind her creaked under weight that wasn't physical, and the faint hum of the radio in the corner carried a choir hymn left over from morning service. My handkerchief was balled tight in my fist, the only thing keeping me from shaking apart. That sound, her voice, thin and uneven, burned itself into me. The sensory anchor, the sound of confession without truth. When she turned away, I saw the form again, witnessed, notarized, time-stamped at 1:03 p.m. on a Tuesday I had spent at the lawyer's office trying to stop exactly this. The irony pressed down like a hand on my chest. "I didn't mean harm," she said. "They told me you were keeping things from me." "They told you that because they needed your name," I said, "not your trust." She didn't answer. She folded the corner of the document over and over until the paper tore. I stepped back, afraid I'd say something I couldn't take back. But she spoke first, softer, uncertain. "They said you'd ruin the family." "They already did," I said. Her lips parted, but no sound came, just a breath, long and hollow. That night, I left her house with the signed paper and the faint sound of her radio still playing. I didn't realize the voicemail had already started recording, the message that would become proof, her words echoing faintly through static. "I didn't mean to. They told me it was fine." The next day, I went to see the old neighbor, the one who had known my mother since the early years, the quiet protector who noticed everything and said nothing until it mattered. She opened the door before I could knock twice. "I heard the raised voices," she said. "She knew what she was doing that afternoon, trust me." She signed under pressure. "She was clear," the neighbor said firmly. "Lucid, just tired. You can tell the difference when someone's mind is fogged. Hers wasn't." Her voice broke near the end, a small tremor hidden under conviction. "They cornered her with kindness," she added. "That's worse than cruelty." I asked if she'd be willing to give a statement. She nodded once, slow. "You've stood alone too long. Time someone else spoke up." The police officer who took my call later that evening listened without interrupting. When I mentioned the document, he wrote carefully, each word deliberate. "We'll file a note under witness acknowledgement," he said. "It gives you standing, at least for now." I looked around my own kitchen as he spoke. Same chair, same folded quilt at the back, same hollow quiet after truth is spoken. The voicemail replayed in my head, her voice skipping between regret and denial. Sound again, as if the whole story were built on echoes. When I hung up, the phone rang again. It was my sister. "You think you've won something?" she asked. "I've only started," I said. "Then brace yourself." "For what?" "For what's next. They've scheduled it." I waited. "When?" She didn't hesitate. "The 21st. Live hearing." Her words landed like a gavel. The same house that had held our childhood secrets now held court dates and witness lists. I looked down at the handkerchief, damp from my grip, and realized I'd been holding it since morning, like proof of a smaller, older pain. Outside, the evening bells from the church drifted through the window, the same melody she used to hum when we were children. But even that sound couldn't comfort me anymore. It only reminded me that truth, once broken, echoes longer than faith. They scheduled the live hearing on the 21st. The hall filled, someone shouted "shame" twice. The light from the overhead fixtures burned too bright, turning every face into a pale mask. The county hall wasn't built for drama, but the tension in that room made it feel like a stage. Rows of wooden benches stretched to the doors, filled with neighbors who once smiled at me in the market, now watching as though I were a stranger. The petition table gleamed under the glare, a narrow field where truth had to fight for breath. The arbiter in his dark robe adjusted his glasses. "We're here to examine the guardianship recall, reference notice 17, dated 21st of October. My heart tightened. The words, "formal notice," sounded clinical, but what it meant was raw. The right to speak for my mother, and to be believed, stood on trial before an audience. The light caught the edge of the microphone. I could hear its faint hum, the kind of sound that makes silence heavier. "You may begin," the arbiter said. I stood. My papers felt slick from nervous palms. "This notice," I said, lifting it just high enough for the light to hit, "was served after a series of falsified documents were discovered. One invoice in particular—" "Irrelevant," my sister interrupted, voice slicing through. "Let her finish," the arbiter said evenly. She crossed her arms. "She's been obsessed with control. Ask anyone. She froze our mother's account, accused family, even hired outsiders to dig through emails." A few murmurs rippled across the benches. Someone whispered, "She's gone too far." Then, louder, the first voice from the back, "Shame." Another followed it, echoing the same word, sharper this time. Shame! I waited. The arbiter raised a hand, restoring the hush. You have the floor, he said. I placed the invoice on the table. The paper under the light gleamed like glass, every figure precise, every lie delicate. This invoice, I said, claims a $21,000 payment for medical evaluations. The facility listed doesn't exist. The stamp bears my mother's forged signature, identical to the one on the consent letter filed earlier. She's lying, my sister snapped. You can see the desperation. I turned toward her. The desperation of someone who spent months rebuilding what you dismantled. She flinched, just enough for the front row to notice. The arbiter leaned forward. You claim falsification. Do you have corroboration? I nodded. The witness from County Hall's own records department confirmed that no such invoice was logged before entry 17. It appeared only after the banking freeze lifted. He glanced toward the clerk beside him. Papers shuffled. Entry 17, recorded by Court Clerk Henderson, the clerk said quietly. Filed post-freeze. My sister's color drained. That's a mistake, she said too quickly. Someone tampered with it. Then name who, I said. She hesitated. Her silence landed like a verdict. From somewhere behind us, another voice rose, an older man this time. We trusted you, he said. The words floated, fragile, but cutting through the air. That was all it took. The room began to tilt. Eyes turned not to me, but to her. The arbiter struck his gavel lightly. Enough of the crowd interruptions, he said. This proceeding requires evidence, not emotion. He looked toward me again. You may display your proof. I stepped closer to the microphone, holding the invoice so the overhead light made it impossible to ignore. The signatures shimmered faintly, a false grace hiding theft. I present this artifact for review, I said, voice steady now, and I submit that guardianship was manipulated under fraudulent representation. The arbiter studied it for a long moment. Then he said, The document will be entered as provisional. Proof! My sister laughed, a dry, bitter sound. You think paper saves you? Wait until they see what she's done to our family. I met her gaze. Truth isn't paper. It's pattern, and yours repeats. For a moment the hall was so quiet I could hear the faint click of the clock on the far wall. The light above the petition table flickered once, a small tremor that felt like time pausing. The arbiter spoke again, his tone now colder. If this notice and artifact are valid, originals must be presented by midday. He adjusted his robe. That's noon tomorrow. Noon. Less than a day to find what they claimed didn't exist. The signed original, the ink that could end the doubt for good. I nodded, feeling the weight settle in my chest. The hall emptied slowly. People left in clumps of whispers and glances. The echo of shame lingered faintly, but softer now, like a question that no longer had just one target. As the lights dimmed, I looked once more at the petition table. The invoice lay under glass now, sealed by process, caught between glare and truth. They demanded the original by noon. They chanted her name. 3 people wept openly. The scent of candle wax drifted through the church hall, sweet and heavy, clinging to every breath. Rows of folding chairs filled the nave, and faces turned toward the makeshift podium where the hearing continued under the cross-light of stained glass. The judge sat beneath a banner that read, Community Trust Forum, a phrase that now sounded more ironic than sacred. They had called this a hearing, but it felt more like judgment by chorus. Some came to witness truth, others came to watch a family burn itself in public. The candles flickered, and the murmurs folded into silence as the clerk called the next name. Accredited witness, Mrs. Helen Ward. She stepped forward with the steady poise of someone who had nothing left to lose. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. I was present when the signatures were made, she said, glancing once at the arbiter, then at me, and I can confirm, without hesitation, that the handwriting matches earlier verified samples from medical and legal records. A low wave of whispers rolled across the crowd. Someone in the second row whispered, "So she didn't forge it." And another voice answered, "Then who did?" The air grew heavier. Wax softened, dripping slowly down the candlesticks, the faint scent growing sharper, scent anchored to memory itself. The judge adjusted his spectacles. "You understand the weight of your statement, Mrs. Ward?" "Yes," she said. "It's not about family preference. It's about fact." I examined 2 documents dated 3 months apart, both written in her hand, both signed in full. He nodded once, marking the page. Across the aisle, my sister stood. Her voice broke the hush like a snapped string. "This is manipulation. She's siding with her." The judge raised a hand. "You'll have your turn." "I'm having it now," she said sharply. "That woman was paid once before. Everyone knows it." Gasps scattered through the room. Someone muttered, "Stop it," and another, "Let her speak." I stayed seated. "You're accusing everyone but yourself," I said quietly, and the microphone picked up the tremor in my tone. Her glare could have cut glass. "You made this about pride. You can't stand that she trusted me more." I leaned forward. "Then why falsify the numbers? 2 accounts, 3 transfers, and no receipts." Her jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know arithmetic," I said. The arbiter intervened, voice calm but final. "Enough personal argument. This is a record session." He gestured toward the witness. "Please read the affidavit aloud." Helen unfolded the paper. Crisp, formal, sealed with the county's mark. The words trembled through the sound system, clear as confession. "I, Helen Ward, confirm that the subject's signature on Notice 17 is genuine and witnessed under full awareness. I further affirm that no coercion was present." The reading ended, and for a moment the crowd said nothing. Then, from somewhere near the back, a woman whispered, "God help them," and another voice echoed softly, "God help her." The judge cleared his throat. "Let the affidavit be entered as an on-stage artifact of verification." He turned his gaze toward my sister. "Do you dispute this witness's credentials?" She hesitated, and for the first time her certainty faltered. I request a handwriting review," she said finally. "Noted," he replied. "We will proceed with an independent analysis." 3 rows ahead, a man folded his arms. "About time," he muttered, just loud enough to catch on the recording. The tension snapped like dry wood. The arbiter leaned back. "This forum stands to find clarity, not punishment," he said, though his eyes lingered longer on my sister than on me. The candles guttered low, leaving only the scent, melted wax, sharp and clean, clinging to memory, like truth refusing to fade. I could feel the tide turning just slightly, like air moving after a storm. But then the judge spoke again, his tone measured and cool. "Before closing this phase, we'll need a handwriting analysis from an independent examiner. All records are to remain sealed until the review is complete." He paused. "You will present originals for comparison, both from the recall notice and the medical authorization." I exhaled, the faint wax scent still in my throat. The stakes had grown again, but so had the light. People began to rise, folding their chairs, murmuring about the witness, about the signatures, about guilt that smelled too familiar. The crowd's verdict was already forming, not official, not written, but alive in the eyes that no longer looked at me with doubt. The judge asked for handwriting analysis. Under fluorescent light, the paper did not match. The lab hum filled the silence, that sterile electric rhythm of truth about to surface. Every chair in the county hall leaned forward, faces pale in the harsh brightness that revealed everything. The forensic examiner adjusted his glasses, the magnifier hovering over the signature like a blade waiting to fall. He spoke with the calm precision of someone used to ending arguments. "Document reference H3, he began, "compared against baseline sample 1 and supplemental entry 3. The handwriting does not align." A murmur ran through the room, low at first, then rising like a tide. One woman near the back gasped. Another whispered, "It's forged." The air thickened with disbelief and relief, tangled together. The light felt hotter now, almost punitive, a truth spotlight no one could hide from. I kept my hands folded on the table. I had imagined this moment 100 times, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like oxygen after drowning, painful, unfamiliar, necessary. The arbiter cleared his throat. "For clarity," he said, "are you stating the signature was fabricated?" "Yes," the examiner replied. "Line pressure, stroke curvature, and ink diffusion all confirm inconsistency. This was not written by the same hand." My sister stood abruptly. "That's impossible," she said. "Those are official documents. You're mistaken." He didn't flinch. "The data speaks for itself." "Someone tampered with it," she snapped. "You think I'd risk everything for a lie?" I looked at her, not as a rival now, but as the shadow of someone I once trusted. "You already did," I said quietly. A man from the audience muttered, "So it was true," and someone else added, "She forged it all." 2 echoes, each louder than the last. The arbiter tapped his pen, restoring order, but the judgment had already settled in the air. The light from above reflected on the glass table, cutting across our faces. I could see the report beneath it. Clean fonts, methodical notation, no emotion, no bias. It was cold and final, the kind of truth that no speech could rewrite. The examiner continued. "The forged document, labeled as Invoice 3-1, bears composite ink inconsistent with samples from the verified entries. Additionally, the signature pressure shows mechanical trace marks, evidence of replication from a printed base." "So it was copied?" the arbiter asked. "Yes," he said simply, "and poorly." The crowd shifted. Some gasped, others sighed. The light above flickered once, and in that pulse I saw the entire arc of the last year, every denial, every accusation, every night spent replaying conversations that no longer made sense. The arbiter looked toward me. "You were correct to file the formal notice. The institution recognizes your action as valid." His tone softened slightly. "We will begin proceedings to reverse the guardianship." The words landed heavy, not as triumph, but as proof that the system, when pushed hard enough, sometimes worked. I nodded once. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady, though my chest felt hollow. My sister tried to speak again. "You can't do this. You don't understand." The arbiter raised a hand. "Enough. There will be time for your statement under investigation. For now, please remain seated." She didn't. She turned to the audience instead, her voice shaking. "You all think you know the truth. You don't know what she's done. You don't—" 2 officers stepped forward from the side aisle. The crowd parted without a word. I didn't watch her face as they approached. I stared instead at the table, where the report lay beside the magnifier, light bouncing off the edge like a reflection of something already gone. The arbiter's voice carried over the murmur. "This hearing will enter formal record as acknowledgment of forgery under institutional review." His gavel struck once, the sound clean and irreversible. Outside the hall, through the high glass windows, daylight spilled through, too bright after months of shadow. It washed over the table, over the documents, over the empty chair beside mine. The light, relentless and indifferent, made everything visible. Behind me, footsteps echoed down the aisle, uniform and final. They led my sister away for questioning. Silence after the gavel is heavier than noise. The sound had ended, but its echo hung in the air, too thick to breathe through. Everyone waited, not for more words, but for permission to move again. The light in the county hall dimmed slightly as the clerk gathered the folders, sealing each with the wax of the county emblem. It was over, yet no one dared call it finished. I sat still, hands clasped, the texture of the wooden bench rough against my palms. Across the aisle, the arbiter signed the final sheet and pressed his seal. "Order 7-1, he said quietly to the clerk, "effective immediately." The words rolled like thunder behind glass. My throat tightened. That number, small, ordinary, would change everything. The clerk stepped forward, holding an envelope embossed with the seal, its paper thick enough to feel like judgment itself. "By order of the county court," she read, "control is restored to the petitioner, with full oversight reinstated." The texture of the paper under my fingers was grainy, uneven, alive with finality. It felt heavier than its weight. My sister sat a few rows away, eyes down. For the first time, there was no protest left in her voice. The guards didn't need to touch her. She already looked removed, as if every defense had turned to dust in her mouth. The crowd murmured, softly, the same people who had once whispered against me, now speaking in low, almost protective tones. "She was right," someone said, "all along." Another voice replied, "No one believed her, not till now." The arbiter cleared his throat again. "The restitution order includes repayment of misused estate funds, totaling $5,000. Payment due within 7 days. 7 days. A full week. But it might as well have been forever for her. I didn't gloat. I just breathed. The protector, my old neighbor who'd sat beside me through every hearing, placed a steady hand on my arm. "It's done," he said. "No one can take it again." I looked at the seal in my lap. "It's not about taking," I said softly. "It's about returning." He nodded. "Still, you fought, and you won." The hall began to empty, slow and reverent. The echo of footsteps folded into the quiet, leaving behind only the faint rustle of papers being boxed. I stood, feeling the envelope's edge bite into my palm. Its texture reminded me of the quilt at home, rough thread, old stitching, meant to last. As I walked toward the exit, a few people stopped me. "You did the right thing." She'd be proud. "You never let go." I smiled faintly, but words felt small next to the ache of vindication. Justice didn't feel clean. It felt carved, like something extracted with care and pain. Outside, the wind carried the scent of rain. The courthouse steps were slick, and the sky hung low, silver and unsettled. I stood there for a moment, staring at the seal in my hands. It glimmered faintly under the gray light, wax-ridged and imperfect, as if reminding me that even truth had scars. When I finally opened the envelope, the paper crackled. That sound of closure, dry and honest. The letter confirmed what the arbiter had spoken. Guardianship restored, rights recognized, oversight reinstated. At the bottom, a line written in blue ink, not typed, caught my eye. Return of funds due, $5,000. Enforcement upon non-compliance. I folded it carefully and placed it against my chest. Behind me, the courthouse doors creaked shut, sealing the air inside. The silence that followed was not the absence of noise. It was peace, earned and uneven. I thought of the quilt folded on the couch, the locket resting by her photograph, the thread connecting all of it. They weren't symbols anymore. They were proof that truth, no matter how delayed, still found a way to return home. They were ordered to return $5,000. We counted coins and counted losses together. The table creaked beneath jars of small change, folded bills, and a stack of handwritten receipts that smelled faintly of sugar and ink. The hall still held the echo of last night's verdict. But this morning, the air felt lighter, like something had finally exhaled after holding its breath too long. The protector set down another envelope. "From the bake sale," he said. "People wanted to help." His smile was weary, but kind, the kind that comes after weathering a storm. I nodded, sliding the paper closer. The ink on the receipts had already begun to blur from damp hands. I traced one with my thumb. The texture of truth made tangible. Each ticket, each coin, felt like a piece of faith returned. "They didn't have to do this," I murmured. He shrugged. "Maybe they needed to. Sometimes the only way a community repairs itself is by feeding each other." The scent of baked bread drifted in from the adjoining room. Butter, cinnamon, the faint sweetness of something warm and human. A child's laughter echoed near the doorway as people filed in to drop donations into a clear jar marked Restitution Fund. For months, I'd been treated as the pariah. Now, hands that once turned away offered help. Quarters, pastries, notes tucked in with small amounts of cash. A man I barely knew whispered, "We're sorry it took so long." I wanted to answer, but my throat caught. At the table, I began sorting receipts into piles: bake sales, yard donations, church offerings. The protector read off numbers, his voice steady. 5, 10, 20, 30. We both smiled when the total crossed 500. "You think we'll make the full amount?" he asked. I looked toward the jar, light bouncing off its glass sides. "We'll make what matters." He nodded slowly, understanding that it was never about the dollars. Though there were $5,000 still owed, every small note felt like a thread stitching something back together. Someone brought over a tray of pastries. "Try one," she said. "They're my daughter's recipe." I took a bite. Sweet bun, still warm, buttery at the center. The taste hit like memory. "She'd have liked this," I said softly, thinking of my mother. Simple, but perfect. The protector smiled. "Simple's all we ever needed." We worked for hours, tallying, signing, sealing. The jar filled, emptied, filled again as we rolled coins and stacked bills. Every sound, clink, rustle, scratch of pen, was a small rhythm of healing. At one point, the local clerk arrived with official receipts, each one stamped with the county seal. "Verification for funds received," she said, handing them over. The paper edges were crisp, the ink still wet. I slid them into the growing stack, physical proof that restoration wasn't just moral, it was measurable. "Feels different counting it this way," I told the protector. "How so?" "This time, it's honest." He laughed softly, tired and proud. "That's worth more than what's written on the checks." The room buzzed quietly as people shared stories of loss, of guilt, of small redemptions. Someone strummed a guitar near the door. The hum of community rose like a hymn without words. As afternoon sunlight streamed through the high windows, I ran a finger down the ledger column, every line now filled. The number at the bottom glowed against the paper like it belonged there. Earned, not stolen. I turned to the protector. "Add that last one." He leaned over, adjusting his glasses. "You sure?" "Yes," I said. "We're not done till it's right." He wrote the figure neatly, pen-scratching finality into paper. I glanced at the clock. Nearly 5. People were packing up trays, wiping counters, hugging goodbye. When I looked back at the ledger, I felt the faintest tremor of disbelief. We had done it. Not all of it, but enough to begin again. Enough to prove that even broken things can mend, if handled with care. The protector closed the ledger gently. "Let's take this to the bank." I smiled. "Together." He lifted the jar. I carried the folder. The weight was shared now, lighter but real. Outside, the evening air smelled of rain and yeast, soft and forgiving. We banked $3,200 that afternoon. I stitched the torn seam and whispered her name. The quilt lay across the table, soft from years of use, its faded squares catching a slow spill of afternoon light through the thin curtain. The air was still, except for the quiet tick of the clock and the sound of thread pulling through fabric, that small, steady sound that once filled our evenings. I hadn't touched it since the hearings ended. Maybe I'd been afraid of what it meant. To mend what had been torn, to see her colors without the anger attached. But now, needle between my fingers, I felt something loosen. Each stitch was a small promise that life, even in fragments, could be pieced back together. The protector stopped by just after noon, his hat in hand. "Everything's signed," he said, holding out a folder thick with new documents. "Guardianship plan approved. It's official this time. Airtight." I smiled faintly, brushing my thumb over the stitched seam. "Good. I'm tired of fighting ghosts." He nodded. "You won't have to anymore. I'll keep copies at the county. No one's touching a single page without your say." The afternoon light shifted, sliding across the table until it found the silver locket resting near the binder. It caught the glow like memory itself, not blinding, just persistent. I opened it, tracing the tiny photograph inside. "She used to hum while sewing," I said. "Said quiet work was its own kind of prayer." He smiled. Maybe she was right. We sat for a while, saying little. The papers rustled softly as I signed the last page. My name, once trembling, now steady. Beside the signature line, a small embossed mark shimmered in the light. The county seal, proof that everything broken had finally been witnessed, restored, sealed. "Feels strange," I said. "After all the noise, this is how it ends, with silence and paper." He looked around the room. "Not silence," he said. "Peace. There's a difference." I poured tea for both of us, the old routine reborn in a new rhythm. "Every morning," I told him, "I'll check the ledger, just to make sure the accounts stay right." He raised his cup. "To vigilance, then." "And to small papers that keep dignity," I added. Outside, the day leaned toward evening. The light had turned golden, pooling across the floorboards. Dust floated in it, slow and calm, like tiny ghosts given permission to rest. I took the quilt in my hands again, running my palm over the seam I'd just repaired. It wasn't perfect, the stitches showed, but maybe that was the point. Healing leaves evidence. I picked up the recorder, the same one I'd once used to catch her voice in the dark. My reflection shimmered faintly in its metal surface. "I pressed record," I whispered, "to prove she was still breathing." The protector looked at me with quiet understanding. I smiled. "Now I press record, and she keeps living." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The curtain shifted, a slow breath of wind carrying the scent of tea and dust. I closed the locket, feeling the click settle into the stillness. In the corner of the table, the ledger remained open, columns straight, ink fresh, light stretching across the page as if marking time. I could almost hear her voice again, soft but sure. "Keep it honest. Keep it whole." The house exhaled with me, everything lighter now. The walls, the air, even the ache. Justice hadn't erased the scars. It had written around them, turning every mark into a line of proof. The locket closed. The ledger stayed open.